Social justice means applying the law equally to all people, but in practice, that doesn't always happen. I'm John Gonzalez. I'm here with my law partner, Jack DeRora. We practice law, we seek social justice. On this show, we reveal the conflict between the two.
You know, for a while, it was just us in the office over a cup of coffee talking about the news of the day. With social justice issues dominating our culture, our focus became how do we, as lawyers, make a difference?
And now it's not just us. And today, Jack, it is just us, just having a conversation. You've heard of low information voters, right?
They're all around us.
And how would you define that?
People who get most of their information from social media, or if they are looking at a reputable news source, just focus on the headline and then move to the next subject. One of those two.
Right. And, you know, you and I talk to people about current events, and I'm often shocked that they don't know what is going on.
Right.
And even my friends in the MAGA-verse don't understand everything that's happening out there. But you and I know I get a large news feed every morning on my Apple News, so I try to read about politics, sports, and other things. So I'm probably the opposite, although I'm not the most informed person because we're busy people. But, you know, I've got enough information because I'm reading a lot. How about you?
Yeah, I try to scan the news, read what I think is important, disregard all the crazy things like Joe Schmo really put down Donald Trump in his podcast. Who cares about that?
Right. And so, like you, I come across things that are, in my mind, just ridiculous or just asinine or as you like to say, they're just stupid.
And stupidity is a constitutionally protected right.
I think we're in the year of stupidity in America. I don't know what Chinese year it is, but in America, it's the year of stupidity. So let's have a little bit of fun. What have you found to be stupid in the news these days?
Well, first of all, I want to say that, you know, you might ask, our listeners might ask, what does stupid stuff have to do with social justice? Well, we're kind of stretching the envelope here. But I think stupidity makes it harder to achieve civility and unity because you're focusing on silly stuff and people are getting outraged over silly stuff. And the more you get away from that kind of the closer you get to that kind of monologue, the harder it is to achieve social justice because you're just creating angst. Okay, my favorite were advertisements of about 30 days ago. Cracker Barrel changed its logo, which was an oval with an old guy, older than me, Gonzo, leaning on a barrel. So they got rid of the old guy in the barrel, and even President Trump was outraged.
No. Trump?
Yeah, hard to believe. So when I was reading how President Trump and others were outraged, I thought, well, what did they do to the logo that's so horrible? And then I looked and I found out they took out the old guy in the barrel. And then there was the ad with Sydney Sweeney, the actress, who's lying on the floor in a somewhat provocative pose, zipping up her jeans and talking about jeans in the sense of those things that give us our physical characteristics. Sounds like she's referring, I guess she has blue eyes. So she says, my jeans are blue. Okay, now people are up in arms about eugenics. And I thought, you know, that was actually a pretty cute play on words. But regardless, why do these things draw such outrage? It's just silly stuff, and they're getting lots of airtime. And maybe we're silly for bringing it up now, except I'm tired of reading about all these things.
I couldn't have described the Cracker Barrel logo to you 60 days ago.
Right.
You know? And now it's made the news. What surprises me as to how ridiculous I also think that whole controversy is that the corporation caved to it.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it just is mind-boggling. I mean, I I think a lot of that is just driven by people out there looking for that controversial or making it controversial so they can get recognized. I've got a podcast and I got a blog and I'm going to find something and I'm just going to make it a big deal so people know me.
I heard someone use the phrase, this was maybe a year ago, conflict entrepreneurs. There are people out there. They stir up conflict to promote themselves.
Oh, I think it's pervasive in a lot of politicians. So here's one. I've got one.
Okay, go ahead.
The Bad Bunny.
Oh, Bad Bunny, right.
Yeah.
By the way, I have to tell you, I didn't even know who Bad Bunny was until about 4 or 5 months ago. That's how out of it I am.
Brad Pitt plays in a movie called Bullet Train.
Okay.
You ought to watch it. It's
All
a
right.
really good movie. But
Okay.
Bad Bunny has a role in it. And I wouldn't have known that except, you and I both have young kids.
Right.
I'm not young, but,
Young adults.
Yeah, young adults who know Bad Bunny, I'm sure. At least mine do. And when the whole Bad Bunny NFL controversy came out, I'm like, okay, who is Bad Bunny? Clearly the NFL isn't directing this to me, right?
Right.
The 60-year-old white guy. They're trying to get young people. And I'm told that he is second to Taylor Swift as far as international popularity with his songs.
Right.
He's obviously done a lot that I don't know of, but then my daughter-in-law pointed out he's in one of your favorite movies with Brad Pitt, on the Bullet Train, and sure enough, he is. And I just, why is that an issue? It's just a halftime Super Bowl show.
It's 15 minutes, maybe 20.
And I can't even tell you the last time I watched the halftime show. I know people, do tune in for the halftime show and they tune in for the commercials. And so the NFL has got a great product there that brings a lot of different people into that broadcast. But what does, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's trying to get a bill through Congress that makes English the only language, I guess, to prevent Bad Bunny from singing in Spanish.
I guess.
And it's the other thing that's so funny about it is we've got a group chat among the kids and Ann and I at home, and one of our son-in-laws had made a comment that seemed to suggest that he didn't realize that Puerto Ricans are Americans. And so I had to point out to him that, hey, by the way, Bad Bunny is an American. But he also had a point that he didn't want to do concerts in America because ICE would be there to arrest his
Followers.
What is wrong with that? But yeah, I think it's just the whole Bad Bunny controversy is stupid. I'm glad that the NFL isn't buying into this culture wars. I think they probably, what did you call the last thing about advertising? Controversial.
Conflict entrepreneurs?
Yeah, well, the NFL's got a lot of people interested now in Bad Bunny. I bet it's going to be one of the highest rated Super Bowl halftime shows ever.
I keep chuckling. You know how somehow the subject arose with my golf league. We're all old white guys. And somebody said Bad Bunny. I was like, what? I could care less who's on the Super Bowl halftime, right?
Yes, right.
All right, so here's another one. Now we have changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Supposedly, I have read from more than one source, this could cost billions of dollars in everything from letterhead to buildings to you name it. I don't know why you'd want to spend money to change the name, but Secretary of Defense, now War Steve Hegseth, says we need to do something that proves or furthers the warrior ethos. Well, my first thought is, I don't know how a change in name does that, but second of all, it seems that Hegseth has just created this fiction that the military is not capable of doing what the military should be able to do. Now, I don't know who would grade the military as to its efficiency in war capabilities. But I haven't read that anybody has said anything to that effect. We just have Hegseth saying that the military isn't where it needs to be. So I'm wondering, how is it that people in Congress can stomach this notion that somebody can just create this fiction and then change a name to perpetuate that fiction?
And my understanding is that Hegseth nor the president really has the power to change the name of the Defense Department to the Department of War, but that they can do kind of what lawyers do, like a DBA, also known as, and go ahead and spend all of this money to make that change. And now you were in the military, I wasn't, but my impression never was that our military wasn't warriors. I mean, those guys, when they go places, they don't mess around. And I don't think anybody in other countries think, oh, yeah, they're the United States military. They're pushovers.
Yeah, I don't know where he gets that idea. I think he's conflating the fact that he doesn't like gays, he doesn't like beards, he doesn't like trans. And so he conflates that with the military as a whole and says it's not doing its job. Go figure.
And, to think that just changing words is going to do anything. It's just, it's words over substance. But, he comes from that mentality. If you watched him before he became Secretary of War, I mean, he's on TV. There's a little ticker at the bottom that sums up what they're saying. And everything's about those words, is about perception instead of what's actually in reality. But I think it's stupid, too. My second one is the Otto pen portrait that I was telling you about.
Tell me again.
So you probably have seen presidents walk down this covered
down the hallway,
but it's not inside; it's outside.
Oh, okay.
But it's undercover.
Okay. And
they walk, and then they go into the White House Oval Office or whatever. So what Trump has done is he's put the portraits of all the presidents. So it's basically a hall of presidents, a hall of fame. But then you have Trump, and then you have a portrait of an Otto pen for Biden, and then you have Trump again. And it is so petty, so ridiculous. And you wonder, what is a billionaire, twice president of the United States, doing like that? I mean, I feel embarrassed for President Trump. He's got so much power. He really does. Why does he have to do something that makes him look so weak and foolish?
I imagine the average psychologist would say he's terribly insecure.
Which would be like, why? What does he have to be insecure about? But, I get it. We're not psychologists, but why isn't somebody in his administration going, you know what? That makes you look stupid, not Biden.
Well, because he selected everybody in his cabinet and his administration is like-minded. There's the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
My turn?
Yep.
All right, this one comes from Dearborn, Michigan, which, by the way, has a significant Arab population. I think it's 89%. So that the police department modified the patch that police officers wear on their shoulder. And they put on some Arabic script for the idea of promoting unity and respect. Now, the mayor of that city is a gent named Bill Batzi, who's of Arab descent. And he endorsed President Trump in 2024. So this was something that the administration of the city endorsed. It makes sense to me. If you got 39% of your population is Arabic, you'd want to show some degree of unity with people. This is a big deal. Not so fast. Enter Laura Loomer, who is a professional conflict entrepreneur and for reasons not clear has the ear of President Trump. And she comes out blaring that we now have Sharia law in America. Now, mind you, we go from a patch that says something about Arabic, nothing incendiary, right, to Sharia law in America. And I'll bet that resonated with a certain sector of America that got up in arms about Sharia law now being the law of the land in America.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous. You really have to be careful because something that I'm sure the department thought was going to go over really well and be a very positive for the community gets taken so out of context and then gets its own legs, right? And becomes just this national thing. And again, what was the pushback? Did they leave the patches on or did they remove them?
I didn't follow up on that. That would be a good question. Yeah. But you touched on something important. The blowback wasn't from the community, from the 61% of non-Arab people in the city. It was from somebody who knows how many hundreds of miles away, Laura Loomer. Oh, help us.
Yeah. So I was reading that there was a superintendent in Oklahoma that ordered 600,000 God Bless America Bibles. Now, these are Trump's Bibles that he's hawking. And ordered them put into classrooms and taught. Well, these Trump Bibles have, the Bible. I think I was telling you maybe the New James edition or whatever, but they also have the Constitution and some of the founding documents.
So we're going to have God and country in one book.
And so you teach it in the classroom. Right. So who would argue with that, right? Only people in favor of Sharia law, I guess. But what happened was one of the professors that was teaching, one of the teachers says, well, wait a minute. These constitutions are, 150 years old because they don't have the amendments from 11 to 27 in it. And so he can't teach slavery, the abolishment of slavery, women's suffrage, birthright citizenship, the giving the vote to 18-year-old. It's all out of these Bibles. What an absolute embarrassment, and what just a stupid. How does somebody become superintendent with that kind of, intellect or lack of?
I don't have an answer for that, but it's pervasive.
I have always thought that our concept of separation of church and state was a good idea in theory, but how do you practice it? But I don't see the advantage to children to have to teach the Bible in school or any religion, because if it's important, they should be getting it at home and at their church.
Well, I don't have little children anymore. Thank God they all grew up to be successful and well-balanced individuals, notwithstanding my lack of great parenting skills. But if I had children in school, I'd want to be selective about who was teaching them about Christianity. I wouldn't leave that to just anybody. Mm-hmm. Oh, is it my turn?
It's your turn.
All right, I'm going to touch on a touchy subject, which was the death of Charlie Kirk. So some number of people have used the occasion of Charlie Kirk's death to say mean-spirited things about him. And one caught my eye in particular. It consisted of good riddance and then some vulgar talk about Charlie Cook. Two thoughts.
Charlie Kirk.
What did I say?
Cook.
Charlie Kirk. Thank you for correcting me. Two thoughts. First of all, we have a long-standing protocol that when people die, you leave them alone. You just don't say anything bad about somebody who has died. Might be an exception for somebody like Pol Pot, Joseph Stalin. But generally, when people die, you leave them alone. You just pay respect. So this fellow breaches the standard protocol. But then he really shows how stupid he is by putting it on social media. Now what happens? He loses his job. Well, wait a minute. So you breached a standard protocol. You said harsh things about a man who has great popularity within a certain part of society, and you weren't thinking that you might lose your job? I mean, what in the world were you thinking, pal?
Yeah, you wonder about that. I remember one of my sisters-in-law, I don't know if I told you, was working at a retail outlet and had posted, I can't remember what it was. This is 2 or 3 years ago. It might have even been in Trump's first term, but something MAGA-like that who cares? And she got fired. And so the issue was, well, was that unfair? And I hate to see anybody lose their job. I always think maybe a lesser, penalty would be appropriate. But I'm a firm believer that private employers can fire people if they think that their free speech is affecting, their business. And so, you take the Jimmy Kimmel thing, which is my next stupid thing. I wasn't criticizing Disney for firing him because Disney is allowed to do that. Now, I don't agree with it.
Right.
But I agree with their ability to do it. I don't want the government shouldn't be stepping in and telling who should be fired and not fired. But yeah, if you're going to do something like that and exercise your free speech, you got to understand there may be consequences. And these people that don't understand it, are they just so caught up in social media that they don't realize that it's being blasted out there to the whole world to see?
I don't know.
Well, it brings me to a little collateral because one of the defenses of Trump, do you know he did this, what is it called? I can't remember. It's MetaBed or something where there's this rumor that the Democrats, George Soros, has these medical beds that you can go in and they cure all your illnesses and basically make you 100% healthy. Well, Trump posted a video about that they're going to soon be coming and everybody's going to get one.
Wait a minute. Yeah, I do recall that. Right.
Yeah, it's just a ridiculous AI thing, right? And people were making fun of Trump saying he doesn't even realize that he didn't say the things in there because he reposted it. But then the defense of it was, well, he just reposts stuff that he looks
Oh, yeah. That's been a common theme of his. I don't know if it's true, but I'm just telling you what somebody else said.
Right. And so, I can almost see that mentality with people that are on their phones or on social media that they just repost stuff without thinking about it or they just make a comment without really thinking about it. But yeah, I agree with you, Jack. That guy was not very smart about what he was doing. Which brings me to Kimmel. This FCC chairman basically went on a podcast and just talked too much. And basically said if they don't remove Kimmel for his comments, which I thought were fairly benign. I mean, when I actually listened to it before the controversy, and I didn't think, oh, my God, I can't believe he went there or anything. But, geez, he's a late-night comedian. And I know they've got sway over a large segment of the population. To some extent, they're influencers. But to go on a podcast and say, if you don't cancel him,
we can do it the easy way or the hard way.
Or the hard way, yeah. And they brought receipts, I guess not too distant past, the same guy was on saying, hey, we got to protect free speech.
Oh, right.
And, so it's stupid. Now, do you think behind the scenes there's still a lot of the arm twisting and stuff when they really want somebody to tone it down or get off the air or there's some I can't imagine our government isn't involved in those things behind the scenes, but this guy says it out loud on a podcast. That's just not too smart.
I doubt if anybody ever accused Brendan Carr of being a great mind.
I think one of our past guests had made the comment that these people are put in these positions to do just what they're doing, which is often very idiotic stuff.
Well, yeah, there's no question about that. And it's just mind-boggling how much controversy is on social media. But that's what we're talking about today.
You got one more?
Yeah, I got one more. This is Brian. I don't watch Fox News. Gee, what a surprise. But I had to look this up. Brian Kilmeade, who's on Fox, a Fox News host, on September 14, he and his fellow co-hosts were talking about homeless people and those suffering from mental illness should be aggressively detained and forcibly treated. And Kilmeade added, or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them. Now you might say, oh, he was kidding. That's just not, whether he's kidding or not kidding, you really want to say something like that? Just, are you kidding me? Now, mind you, there wasn't much outcry about that, right?
Sure.
Nobody threatened.
Because nobody watches him.
Well, Brendan Carr didn't say anything about that, right?
It's the reason to me it's such a ridiculous thing to say, even that he was kidding, is most of what they're doing is scripted. They're not on air wasting words. So what he said didn't just occur to him. He's either had said it a number of times before, right? Or he was going to say it. He had intended to say it. And, it's, you're in a position where you're reaching a lot of people. I think there's some responsibility to be careful there in a news role. But if Fox wants that idiot on, that's something I'll never watch, and a lot of people aren't.
Well, you've poked on, that's not the right phrase. You've touched on a subject that I've heard made by people who I respect, and that is there are a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are people, let's say like Joe Rogan on his podcast, who will have guests that will say outrageous things. And the thought is, wait a minute, there's really very little truth here. Why don't you push back, in essence, cross-examine, challenge this fellow? And the response is, I'm just here to have a conversation. So there are people out there who just allow these things to be broadcast unfiltered. Now, that's a separate subject from what we're talking about today, but it's all related, I think.
And I wonder if that's a way to justify it to themselves so they can sleep at night.
Could be. I think the overall problem is that people feel they have this right to express their views. And the challenge today is they have an ability to do that, whereas when you and I were little kids, you didn't have the means. The best you could do was write a letter to the editor. Really, that was it. So now people think they have the right to say whatever they want, and they forget that things like common courtesy and being polite and civility, in my view, can trump mean words or dishonesty. You got to think about just how to have some social norm. And when you think about it, you and I are in this room, we're all by ourselves, and it's easy to forget that other people will be listening. It's just the two of us right here. So fortunately, we don't say anything that I think is stupid. We don't say anything that's vulgar. We don't attack people, but you get lulled into that when you're talking and nobody's in front of you.
Well, in both of us have said stupid things and have done stupid things in our lives. We make mistakes. We're human, just like everybody else. And, I respect people that come out and say, hey, I was wrong, or back then when I said that, it was wrong to say it. I realize it now. And you just don't see people taking ownership interest in the stuff that come out of their mouths.
Well, if you've said stupid things in your life, I'm sure I have exceeded the number, but I'm not saying it on the podcast.
Well,
right?
We're trying not to. And
we say it in private, but, we don't say it on the podcast, and I don't say it in op-eds that I write, right?
Yeah, no, and I know when you're op-eds, you're very careful about each sentence to make sure that it communicates the right sentiment and not give the wrong impression from what you're trying to do. So my last one is back to our President Trump. So he tweets to his attorney general basically that you should be prosecuting my political opponents, my political enemies. And then, of course, he gets the indictment of Comey. And the reason that is so stupid, President Trump stopped doing that, is because they're going to use his tweets, and they've used them in other cases, against the very interest he's trying to promote, which is to get these people that need to be got because they came after him. And, you know, vindictive prosecution is a thing. That's why you hardly ever hear prosecutors talk about their case. Now, you do see them, they'll lay out the indictment, but it's never personal because there's a defense in law of vindictive prosecution. And you've got the President of the United States basically putting it out there, and that's going to be used. And I'll be very interested to see what happens with Comey's defense of vindictive prosecution.
Now, have you realized the great irony with President Trump wanting to prosecute Comey? Think hard. Come on. Comey had a great hand in helping elect President Trump in 2016. Remember, what was it, like 60 days prior to the election, he came out and said, wait a minute, I got more news about Hillary Clinton and her server. Holy mackerel. Mm-hmm. That sure as heck didn't help Clinton. Trump should be thankful.
I have a client of mine that spent 5 years in prison violating federal law, so he was all through the FBI investigation, the indictment, the trial. As far as he's concerned, none of those people are good actors, right? And so he has no sympathy for what Comey's going through other than the fact that he thinks he probably didn't do anything wrong, but neither did I, and I spent 5 years in prison, so Comey's getting what his department had dished out. But everybody's got a different perspective. But if anybody can talk to the president about, hey, look, it's a tough case anyway. I don't need your help on social media to make it harder. So,
one more thought from me on this, and I think I've referred to it before. There's a podcast called The Daily Stoic, and the podcaster, I forget his name, I think it's Ryan Hall. I may have that wrong. But he talks about the ancient wisdom of Stoicism. And one of those tenets is you don't have to have an opinion about everything. You can just be quiet. And those people who want to talk about a police patch in Dearborn, Michigan, or rant about Charlie Kirk, and they want to do it in the public scene or the public specter, why?
There's an even more famous quote from Dragnet, and it's obviously a constitutional law theory. What you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, right?
There's no question.
Yeah, and so you got to be careful. Jack, it's always great talking to you on or off the air about these things. We got to do this again in a couple of months because I'm sure we'll have a handful more of what we think are just ridiculous or stupid things.
Oh, those things are no question they're going to come about. Our thanks to WOSU and our sound engineer, Dalton Jones. If you like what you've heard today, tell a friend. We want this to be more than just us. We want it to be all of us. So you can help us. Like us or follow us on your podcast app. Submit a review. Help elevate our profile so that other podcast listeners can find us. We'll be back in another week or so with another social justice issue. Until then, so long.